Hello there, it's Tom and Magnolia here, and this is Annie in the Forest Part 2.
Hi there.
So this is the second side story, the second part of Annie in the Forest. And I guess I should mention that you can find these side stories right here on my website in this little extra comics button. And like I mentioned in the previous video, I did also do limited run print versions of these, just at A4 size. They're either available at my Topetico store if they're in stock, or from me at conventions at the rare occasion you could find me at one.
I have copies of all the side comics and I really like them. I think they make nice little books.
Yeah, I kind of like the larger format of the comics. When I do the final Beyond the Walls book, I'd like it to be kind of a more, I guess, manga-sized novel. And since these comics are the first time I worked with screen tones, some of the print copies did have a little bit of a Mar pattern on them. And I think going forward, I might just try and avoid that by using grey tones instead. But once it's printed, there's not much I can do about it. I might just redo all the tones of the side stories when I come to putting them together in the final book form. But anyway, this picks up where part 1 left off. And it starts with a big old picture of Annie, and her neck is a little bit long, I think.
I think it looks nice. Do you want to talk about the inspiration for it?
Nah.
Okay.
And as we saw in the previous video, or in the previous part, Annie had come to Jumper's Pool to hang out with Camelin, and he'd brought his girlfriend along. And so that's where we are right now. The two of them are just kind of sitting on the beach, and he's, I guess, showing off like a young man in front of his girlfriend jumping into the water. Just kind of mindless, hanging out.
This is something that I meant to mention before, but I really like the way Annie's shirt is shaded. I just think it's a nice effect that you couldn't really do as well in color.
Yeah, her shirt is just black, but I didn't want it to be a solid color of black, so I was just trying a few things out. I'm not sure how successful it was, but...
I really liked it, so that's all that matters.
I think one thing that I was finding difficult and that I still need to work on is the balance of black on a black and white page. And I think not relying on the screen tone and not having the color there to rely on, it makes it kind of difficult, and I need to kind of work on that a bit more. I think there's a bit more work I need to do to get that nice balance. But here Ariel kind of calls out that Camelin was probably being a little bit too nice to her because that's just how he is, and drawing attention to the fact that she might have got the wrong idea about it.
Well, I love how real Ariel feels to me. Like, she seems like someone who, if you met her, you might be like a little bit on guard because she's so forward, but she obviously has nice intentions and stuff.
Yeah, she's just a nice, earnest girl. Because I knew that I wasn't going to be focusing really on the Ariel as a character. I just wanted her to be kind of easy to grasp, just from her short interactions with Annie, and that's kind of how I wanted the rest of the tree elves to be. Like here, when it turns out that, a bunch of her friends are coming by because they all wanted to meet the new person in town. I just had fun kind of just drawing little interactions and giving very small snippets of the potential personalities that these characters might have had.
Well, I was thinking about how in some ways they seem very opposed to court behavior because they're so open and they talk about things so easily. It seems like at the court, even with the people who we like, it's not really that way. Like, even thinking about Willie and Janet as a counter, like how they're so secretive about their relationship, whereas here they all seem very casual and touchy and everything. Yeah,
they're kind of like young adults at this point. Most of them are older than Annie, and they'll have heard stories about the court and rumors and that kind of thing, but it's not really anything that's on the forefront of their mind, and the only reason they're even thinking about it now is because somebody from the court has come here, so they're kind of just chatting about things and just treating her as if she was just a regular person, and just wanted them to be, like, sort of forward and welcoming, but also, I wanted to make a scene where you might be a young person surrounded by older people who are focusing their attention on you and sort of not intimidated by that so much, but are really aware that you're the focus of attention by people who are, I suppose, your elders, even if it's just by a span of a couple of years.
Sure. Also, I love that Tintin guy.
Jem.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just kind of, he's older too, but holding on to some childish ways and getting embarrassed, and just I kind of like having small little details like that in there. And they're just interested in Annie as a person and interested in any relationship she might have, just regular stuff that they might be thinking about at their age.
So the way that I interpreted this scene, basically where she mentions Jack and they kind of give her advice about it, is that that scene in Faraway Morning when she told Jack that she didn't like him, maybe there was a part of her that was kind of earnestly trying this advice. But was that your intent with that?
Yeah, kind of. This was directly setting up for that scene and why she acted kind of weirdly towards him there. And I specifically had this panel here where the girl is saying that maybe the advice would work unless he was currently fixated on someone else, which Jack is at this point. He's kind of fixated on Zimmy.
So Annie and Jack could have happened, Potentially.
Maybe.
Do you think the advice Ariel gives is actually good advice?
No, it's the kind of dumb advice that a young person would give to, to another young dumb person.
I know, because I really don't think that works.
No, of course not. I don't think any of them are scholars, really.
Yeah.
They're just messing around,
Yeah.
Actually, it's more like the kind of advice that you'd hear a male character telling another male character in a story, but I thought it was fun just to, have the girl say instead. Because
Sure.
it's just silly advice.
But it is cute seeing her and Camlin flirting,
Yeah, and this, I think, this panel kind of shows why he likes her, because, she probably keeps him on his toes.
Cute.
But after that, with a bunch of young people hanging out in the nights, the alcohol gets brought out.
Poor thing. But that's why I like this story so much. Because it feels nice to see Annie do normal stuff like this. Because even when the kids at Gunnerkrigg break out, they go to watch a big science experiment or something. They're not doing regular kid stuff, and it's fun to see her let her guard down like this.
Yeah, this is probably closer to what younger people would do if they were to hang out unsupervised.
It's funny how Annie had to leave the court and go live with a bunch of magic forest elves to get a normal teen experience.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going for, and that really is what these side comics are for. Gunnerkrigg, the main story, is not really about regular kids having regular experiences, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
But I thought it'd be fun to basically give Annie regular experiences in these side stories.
The other question I wanted to ask is, has Kat ever had alcohol or gotten drunk before, or is Annie more experienced than her in this regard now?
I'd say the cat has probably had alcohol before.
Not that alcohol is something that teens should seek out to have experience in.
Well, no, I think, Kat probably would have had alcohol in more, I guess, sterilized circumstances. She probably had some with her parents at some point,
Cute.
Because, in Europe at least, it's kind of normal for children to have alcohol at a young age at home with their parents, maybe a bit of wine at dinner or, trying something out. So yeah, Kat would have experienced that. But Annie probably has the worst possible introduction to alcohol, which is she's given a bunch and she doesn't know what to do with it, but just drink it all. And we get to see Hangover Annie.
I think this scene is one of my favorite scenes in the whole series, even if Annie of the Forest doesn't really count as part of the series, just because I think it's very realistically felt, and it's really an Annie that we don't get to see very much. And I also love all the stuff with Sir Reid, but we can talk about that more as we see more of it. Yeah,
and Sir Reid is Camlin's sister, who's living in the same house, and in the previous part, she was one of the girls making fun of Annie, and that's why she kind of slipped her the ache water.
And that's an Achewood reference.
It is an Achewood reference, yeah. And here's us showing that in the village with these people, if you've done something bad to somebody, then your punishment is to help them back out of it, at least for the younger people anyway,
I think that's a really nice idea. I don't know, it's just a good rule of thumb. I really love these drawings of Annie, and it's just, sad to see her like this, but also you kind of get the feeling that this was kind of like an emotional break that she needed.
Well, yeah, and it was also just, I wanted to draw a scene where you're kind of drifting in and out of sleep, when you have a hangover the day after partying hard, I guess, for Annie would have been. Oh,
and the other interesting thing is it's sort of easy to forget that Annie has, in the continuity of the story, has just learned that the reason why her mother died, so...
Well, yeah, exactly. She just learned that a couple nights before, I suppose it was. And that's why she's here, really. She ran away from the court and ended up staying here with no planning or arrangement or anything. And now that she's just laying in bed dozing, she catches a glimpse of why she's there and she remembers some things. But it is just little flashes of memory that happen while you're dozing in bed, and she just falls straight back to sleep. And then she does wake up and watches Sir Reid, who's been watching over her, do some of her wood manipulation. And they talk a little bit about that.
This is a nice scene, too, because it really does feel that way when you don't realize you're dehydrated.
Oh, yeah, sure. That's what I tried to get across here, that first drink of water after a night of drinking, really.
In the previous part, you were saying that you wished you had spent more time on showing the way they grow their buildings and stuff, so I think you get it across pretty well here.
I suppose so. It is just a small thing that they chat about, in service of just writing a scene where they're starting to get along and just chat about regular things.
I always like when the character who's a bully, turns out to have more to them than just that, because most people aren't just jerks and nothing else.
Well, yeah, Sir Reid she's not a bad person, but she was being a bad person, and she realizes that she was just being a complete bee, really.
Yeah.
And so she kind of has to eat crow and just be humble about it and realize that she's done wrong. And that's really what this type of punishment is for, to make her realize what she's done and how she was being. But Annie doesn't take it too badly. And after a bit of lounging around and letting the day progress and Annie feel a bit better, they decide to go out. And Annie actually gets, a proper tour of the village and a chance to go out and see things. And when Sengra turns up, she doesn't snitch on Sir Reid. She just says that they've been hanging out.
That's nice. And I love the energy Sengra has here, like the mean dad kind of showing up.
Oh, yeah. And the Sir Reid here, when she mentions the boots that she was telling her, those are the boots that Annie makes for Kat from the Forest She Came chapter. And here, Sir Reid exits. We do see her again a little bit at the end, but I just wanted to mention that I kind of really enjoy drawing Sir Reid. I like her design, and she has a lot of the elements of what I like about the design of the tree elves. The very pointy nose and ears and kind of vampire teeth and her eyes and hair. Don't know. I just think she's nice to draw. So I should probably do some more pictures of her at some point. But anyway, Annie and Sengren get to hanging out, and here we really see that Sengren is a lot more comfortable with Annie than he was in the past, and they're just hanging out in the grass without his body on.
It's always nice to see these two together.
Yeah, I love these two. I love their relationship. So yeah, this is just a small scene to see how Annie's doing.
It's nice to see that Annie is now more comfortable with them, and especially with Camlin, and doesn't feel awkward about it and stuff.
Yeah, I suppose an event like the previous night just draws them all together, and they'd probably be considered friends at this point, and she knows a few of the older people in the friend group, so she's kind of slotting herself into life here. And so they head back home, and the big thing here is, at the beginning of the story, she needed to be hauled up into the house with the rope here, but here she's able to figure out a way of doing it on her own, which really is, I guess, putting a Sengren's advice to practical use here.
It's just a nice moment, and it's nice to see Annie accepting responsibility for herself rather than whining about it.
And so that's where the two-part series ends, but I wanted to give the impression that she probably spent the rest of the time in the forest more like this, more of a happy experience. And that is the end of Annie in the Forest, parts 1 and 2.
And we'll do Traveller next?
Yeah, Traveller is the next one, so come back again for the next video.
Bye!